Well, the Fight Guys with Erik Apple is back once again, and we are ready to rock with one of my favorite people, the former number one featherweight in the world, the promoter of Fight Night San Jose, the San Francisco Father of the Year. It is El Nino, Gilbert Melendez.
Oh, I love the introduction, Apple, man. Good to see you again. Thanks for having me on.
We love having you on. Like I said, you're one of my favorite people. You're my boy. I got your back all the way. We got a bunch of different things to touch on this week. Some things going on in our sport. But first of all, what's happening with Gilbert Melendez and Fight Night San Jose?
Man, thank you for asking. Well, Fight Night San Jose is the project I'm doing with Scott Coker, my promoter from Strikeforce. And basically, we're creating a Bay Area mixed martial arts platform, trying to elevate the next generation, giving some of the OGs a place to shine. A lot of the OGs got to travel internationally all over the States in order to get some fights. So we're highlighting them here. And we have Fight Night 5 coming up. We haven't announced our main event, but, some of our shows before have had stars like Chris Cyborg. We had Eddie Abasolo. We had Matt Baker fight last time against Moses Marietta. We had some really good fights. And, yeah, man, just trying to create this mixed martial arts ecosystem here in the Bay Area, Apple.
That's a hotbed for MMA, as we've known for, well over almost 2 decades now. San Jose has had a lot of great fight gyms, a lot of great fighters, a lot of great fight shows. And you've certainly had the fortunate, experience to be a big part of that.
Yeah, man. And we're really excited about it all. And I'm 4 fights in. We're going to have our 5th show. Looks like it's going to be May 30th, just around the corner. We do it at this beautiful arena called the Tech CU Arena. It's where the minor league team for the Sharks play. The Barracudas play there. It's a huge arena, but it seems very intimate. It seems about 5,000 people, and it's a great time, man. We've had people like Rampage there. You've been there, helped calling the fights. Nate's there. Kane Velasquez has been there, and just had a really good time. It was really good. I like to think it was a good party.
You just brought up something I wasn't going to originally talk to you about, but how has been the reaction in the Bay having Kane Velasquez back in the scene? It's great to have him home, right?
Yeah, you get wind of it through social media and people talking about it. Like, hey, man, Kane's out. It can't just be the Bay Area. It has to be the whole mixed martial arts, the whole community, the whole world is probably stoked he got out. What an amazing human being, and what a crappy situation he was in. And I hope he got his hero's parade. We saw him, I did see the video. They had the mariachis out there for him. And, it was great to see him reunited with his family and all that great stuff.
Did you get the Mexican juices flowing when you heard the mariachis for him?
All the time, baby. It said, speak to your soul. He gets your Mexican juices flowing too. You know it.
I love it. I'm very at home in Santa Ana. Listen,
Dana Puente, baby.
I know you don't have your main event announced, but I did tell you the other day that we are going to do our best here at Bet Online to get some odds for you on the Fight Night show. Get just a little bit more interest, get the fans a little bit more, like I said, a little bit more into it. And when they put some money on their favorite fighter at the Fight Night, they'll be more likely to watch or show up. So we're going to do our best to make that happen. There is a card coming up this weekend. Man, the UFC has so many shows now. I hate to say it's watered down, but man, there's a lot of fights going on with names we're not really super familiar with. One name we are very familiar with is Izzy Adesanya. He's going to be fighting on this card, taking on Joe Pfeiffer. Izzy is a slight favorite. He's been out for over a year. I mean, from your experience, when you're a champion and you sit out that long, how does that affect you?
Yeah, I think it's case by case for everyone. And, I think what it really comes down to is Izzy's motivation. Is it 2 years out of the gym? I took a year off of training. I healed an injury. Or is it like 2 years? I worked on my craft. I improved my skills. I reinvented myself, and I picked up the sparring accordingly and at the right time to peak out for this return in this moment. It's all his mindset. I don't know where he's at. But Izzy Adesanya, man, he's one of the best to ever do it. He's known for being very elusive and to set up for traps. And Pfeiffer's that's his name, right? Joe Pfeiffer, is that how you say it?
Joe Pfeiffer, yeah.
Real tough banger out there, and is going to be a tough task. But it's case by case, basically how people respond to a 2-year layoff. But it's really tough to get back to where he is. I'll say that, where he was.
Yeah, who knows if the motivation is even there after you make a bunch of money, win a bunch of championships, and then, I think he's lost 3 in a row or 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, something like that. So it's going to be tough for him to come back, but we will see if that road starts this weekend. Now, I want to shift gears. I don't know if you noticed, but last week we had Eddie Hearn on with myself and Pac-Man Jones, and he did nothing. He did nothing but feed the fire as far as the drama between himself and Dana White and Zuffa boxing. It's kind of making stuff exciting for us, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is exciting. And did you just set up a charity boxing fight, I think, and the potential for something like that? And yeah, you know what? It is exciting, and it's fun to see even the promoters sparring a little bit. I mean, it's unorthodox at times, but it's keeping it entertaining. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it's good for the sport, I guess. And these guys are battling each other. It is an interesting time for the sport of mixed martial arts and combat sports in general. It's an interesting time.
I mean, it's pretty cool to have Eddie Hearn, looking at MMA. He already is helping out a former heavyweight champion as far as representing him, as far as his deals outside of the cage and potentially in there as well. But man, him and Dana have really been going at each other. I don't really think it's that personal. I think Dana just likes the venom and likes the fight. That's kind of what gets him going as far as promoting. I think he almost needs that, like an opponent.
That's a good way of looking at it. He's trying to fire himself up, get into the business and all there. But, I don't know this, I'm more concerned with the real fighters, not the promoters, and where they sit on this and how it's impacting them and, what's coming of it. And it could be, like you said, 2 guys just kind of sparring, and maybe, Dana's tactical that way, or maybe Dana's getting fired up that way. But it also kind of just seems like, 2 guys getting competitive and maybe overly competitive, and, and talking about things that should be closed doors, and, kind of having a ripple effect. And unless it's this intelligent, plan to amplify things, it does feel like fighters are a little, unhappy or a little upset. There's money flying around. There's people yelling at each other, and, people are making $10,000 to show up for a first fight, and, so I'm more concerned with the fighters, not the fighters on top, but the fighters that are making their intros into UFC or intro into the sport of MMA, and, how we can get them good enough money so they can continue on their journeys.
Yeah, I think it's funny because, we're at a point now where the sport is, borderline mainstream. The UFC got a $7.7 billion deal with Paramount. So people are seeing there's a lot more money, and they're looking at the percentage split between the athletes and the organization. And it's not even anywhere close to the other leagues as far as baseball, football, hockey, soccer, and so on. So I think Eddie Hearn, I got him to admit that he's considering it and he's looking at creating an MMA promotion. I think, we need to remember that competition is what helps everyone, right? If there's somebody else who can bid on these fighters or try to sign these fighters, then the UFC has to pay fighters more. If there's no other competition, which, let's be honest, there is not very much right now, the UFC could do whatever they want, and why wouldn't they?
No, that's a really good point, right? They bought out a lot of the competition, and they just done it better than a lot of competition. They've done a great job, but like just kind of scooting back a little, even having that role for a long time. I know they've transitioned right there. I just feel like the worldwide leader of sports, ESPN, just, they love sports as well. And you can, I felt like I saw the love for MMA or the new sport. And, I felt like ESPN, they just had a better, they just had more of a appreciation for the sport and the fans, and, probably were more interested in making some of the big fights as well. And, it just felt like it felt like they appreciated the sport a lot more.
Yeah, and the way they structured this deal, I don't know. I mean, you have to imagine these guys are real smart people with billions of dollars on the line. They had to have considered this and thought about it. There's no way they didn't. But now that there is no pay-per-view, where is the incentive to have mega fights? Because you're not going to make any extra money on those fights. So where does the sport go from here if we want to see the giant fights moving forward?
Yeah, but you hit a good point, right? Like that's, like that's what I'm talking about. Like the spirit of the spirit of the game is like supposed to stay true to making the best fights, right? Maybe instead of netting, 100 million on a show, let's just say that's what they did. Maybe you net, 20% less because you paid some fighters more just to keep the authenticity and to keep the John Joneses versus Pereira or Aspinall, and pay the extra money to bring Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor, and you tell me like, oh, that doesn't balance the books, that doesn't make money, but that's because that's short term, a short term look. If you want this parade to go on a lifetime, which UFC had that medicine to do it, you take away from that, then your longevity goes down. So I think long term, even though it doesn't balance the book, spending that money towards it will keep the culture strong and keep people coming back. So but if people in there believe that, then maybe they can, they would go along with that.
So that's going to take me into our next subject, the next topic I want to get to. We're talking about other fight shows, competition, all that stuff. The MVP card, our boy Nate is a big part of that. Headlining the show, however, which, man, now looking back, I think Nate should have been the headliner maybe over these two girls. But we got Gina Carano, who last fought 17 years ago, taking on Ronda, who last fought 10 years ago. Ronda's a 5-1 favorite. What are your thoughts on this title, on this main event?
Well, I think it is marketed as a triple main event, but I know that, yes, it is Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano who's being highlighted. Man, I am fans of both of them. They've done so much for the sport of mixed martial arts. I think they bring fans who've maybe stopped watching mixed martial arts maybe back to the table. I could tell they're trying to, reach different audiences, and I'm really excited about it. You got the judo practitioner and you got the Muay Thai specialist. And, I think it'll be fun to watch. It's a fun fight. I can get behind it. And, I'm happy for the ladies that they're getting paid. I'm happy that Netflix is, taking a strong interest into combat sports. And like you said earlier, it's great to have, more players in the game.
Yeah. Also, another one of the three main events, I guess you could call it, Philip Linds, Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou, a massive favorite, 12-1. Philip Linds is fighting a light heavyweight, as far as I know. Not really a big name. Kind of a weird thing. Like, if they could get two big names for, with Gina and Ronda, why couldn't they get another bigger name guy to take on Francis? I'm kind of confused. And, again, I don't want to be negative, but I feel like Francis has squandered the opportunity, right? He left the UFC as a heavyweight champion. He signed this big, massive deal with PFL. I think he had one fight there, maybe. Then he fought boxing, and he lost to the former champion. It's just been kind of, it's like, dude, where have you been? You were supposed to leave the UFC and make all these big dollars and be this big headliner, and you've barely been around, and now you're fighting a nobody.
Oh, man, Apple, I think you're a little hard on the champ Francis Ngannou. I thought he's done a spectacular job of, keeping his head, on the prize, which is business and security. And, man, he's
fought
done
like twice
things,
in 4 years, right?
Yeah, but he's knocked some people out, right? Like, who was the champ or that he had a great fight with? He fought Tyson Fury, correct? And
yes.
Had a great performance, and he went to bat for the mixed martial arts community, and and stood, I think, the whole distance with a legend, right? Like, Hey, give the guy a break, right? And he's also, he's lost to Anthony Joshua, made some money out there, and he's one big fight away from being loved by everyone again in the MMA community when he gets that right challenge. I do, however, believe that this was a bummer of a matchup when they announced it, right? Because I don't know the other guy at all.
Honest. And I thought, be honest. Like, were you like, who? Philip who?
Yeah, I was actually. I was. Yeah, completely honest. But I was like, wow, what a great opportunity. Francis Ngannou versus, another reputable heavyweight. It could have been a Muay Thai fighter, a boxer, an MMA fighter. Like, a name, even if it was a washed up guy, it could have been a name. But I thought that fight, they kind of dropped the ball on that one. But
I
announcing
mean,
their third main event,
Junior Dos Santos is on
made
the
things,
card.
made things up.
They should have matched him up with Junior Dos Santos. That would have been better than Philip Linds.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think people would. That's exactly, that would have done the trick for me, right? Like Junior Dos Santos versus Francis Ngannou, a former UFC heavyweight known for his hands. That would be great, But yeah, they didn't make it happen.
I mean, the MVP card to me is good. I think Nate Diaz and Mike Perry should be the main event. The other fights are like, eh. I mean, they have Lorenz Larkin fighting the former Bellator champion. I like Lorenz. He's exciting. Junior, like I said, Junior Dos Santos, Alex Pereira's sister, who's an exciting girl to watch fight. But I'm not blown away by it. Like, they had an opportunity here to really make a splash, and I felt like this was a half-assed attempt.
Yeah, again, man, I think you're a little harsh, and I disagree. I think I think it's a great start. You know what I mean? I think it's a great start. You got two big fights. When I think of Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, I think of Amanda Serrano and the other young lady. Yeah, I think of those two fights are the ones that got my attention, and I'm sure those are the two fights that the 100 million were tuned in for. And you're right. The real mixed martial arts community, their craving is a top to bottom card. These guys I think everyone needs to learn the mixed martial arts fan base a little bit more. We're very loyal, and we want to watch the first fight to the last. I think boxing is you just turn in for the main event,
Top
maybe
heavy.
The co-main event. That's, top heavy, So, I think I love that they're giving more money to the MMA community. I think it's a strong start. Could it be better? Yes. And, again, a lot of appreciation and, pumped that they're feeding the ecosystem.
Well, let's talk about the fight that we really care about. Mike Perry versus Nate Diaz. All the betting shops, including BetOnline, have Mike Perry favored. And that is confusing to me. Is that confusing to you?
It really is, especially with the 5-round fight. And, but that's okay because lately I work for fights. I work for the LFA and I watch fights and I see these odds makers and, surprisingly sometimes, they get it wrong. It's not always right. And, anyone who has trained with Nate Diaz and anyone knows who Nate Diaz is, it's a different type of striking until you feel it. And it's a different type of durability, a different type of endurance, and a different type of fighter IQ game, because this IQ game is done on such a faster pace that it's hard to download everything. So yeah, I'm a big believer in Nate Diaz, but Mike Perry's tough, great boxing, heavy hands, but it's tough to put Nate away. And yeah, man, I'm pumped up for this fight. I think it's a special fight, and I think it's a significant fight because it's not just any fight. It's two guys that I think, stand for what the true culture of MMA is and how it started. And that's two individuals who are fighting to conclude a fight, fighting to finish and to win, not to win a scorecard, but to defeat them. There'll be no question about it. Your eyeballs will let you know who the winner is. And, that's the type of mentality these guys have. And I think, and I think it's a really fight that's important for the culture of MMA and the spirit of MMA. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great fight.
Yeah, talking about who should be favored and all that stuff, I think that Nate, it's not like he's little. So, he should be able to get a takedown at some point in the fight. And I think Mike Perry's going to have a real problem on the ground with Nate. Mike Perry doesn't have horrible cardio, but it's not like he's exactly known for doing 5-round fights and having all the wind in the world. So I think Nate should be even favored there. So maybe this is an opportunity for us to make some money, brother.
I love that, man. I love that. I try not to bet on my friends, but every so often, it makes a lot of sense, and you brought up some good points, man. Nate's grappling is phenomenal, and And Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is made for combat, right? Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is made for combat, and it's very effective to this day when you're in a combat, environment. Jiu-Jitsu is different. You butt scoot now, but you don't have to worry about no one kicking you in the head while you're down or face stomping you or anything. So like that classic, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, getting a guillotine on a wrestler who's trying to hold you down, and a triangle when someone's trying to just put that in your chest, and it's a different game. When you're in a real fight, like for your life type of fight, things, submissions pop up, a lot more, and you get stuck a lot more in these positions. So yeah, you're great point there, Apple.
Well, listen, I want to know: are you going to be in the corner, or are you going to be sitting in one of the first couple rows with me?
You know what, man? I'll definitely be there supporting, and I'm definitely going to go out there and help Nate, and and we're all going to regroup and get together soon and get some training together, and definitely going to see how I can help him. But 1,000%, I will be there.
Let's do it. I plan on seeing you there. So Gilbert, let's wrap it up. You guys don't forget Fight Night San Jose, Gilbert Melendez, El Nino Training Center, and the Scrap Pack. I want some Scrap Pack shirts. And we will see you guys.
Over, brother.
We will see you guys next week here on the Fight Guys with Erik Apple.